Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. And we are excited to be here with you. It is fully in swing, 2023. We are officially here. Hopefully you guys have made the transition. And we have it in studio with us today, my co-host, Mark Bassett. Mark, why don't you give a shout out to the people?
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year.
Mark is the person. He is becoming the most beloved. I think he's getting ready to surpass Jonathan everywhere I go. Mark, people are like, we love Mark Bassett. He's hilarious, is what they say. I can't seem to find the humor, but if they find it, we'll run with it. Yeah. And we also have our producer in the studio with us, John B. in the place to be. What's going on, John?
Hello. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Okay, so we're starting out. It's in my my thoughts on hot off the press, but I want to get right to the conversation. And that's really about the Buffalo Bills player DeMar Hamlin. Were you guys watching that game by chance?
I wasn't. I don't typically watch Monday Night Football, but I flipped through it and I saw it. You know,
Mark, what do you do other than collect Santas and Christmas things? What are your hobbies?
Music, as you know. I collect music and like to listen to music.
Lots of music.
Yeah. I like to watch TV at night. I tend to watch kind of mindless shows. People are going to laugh at this. I love Hallmark movies. I'm a big Hallmark movie fan.
Gosh, Lifetime specials over here.
Yeah, I like American Pickers is another one I like to watch. But I used to be a huge wrestling
fan. What is American Pickers?
It's these two guys that travel around the U.S. and they roll up on somebody's farm. And he's got all this old stuff, and they buy it from him, basically.
They buy the farm, or they buy the things from
like
them?
The things, like this or that.
I bet you probably can find some things that probably have a hidden value to them. The people don't.
Yeah, for sure.
I would imagine,
because a lot of people don't know what they've got. I used to be a huge
one man's trash, another man's treasure.
Professional wrestling fan, so I used to watch wrestling a lot. I've gotten bored with it.
So who was your favorite wrestler?
Oh, the Nature Boy.
Woo!
Oh yeah, Randy Macho Man Savage was another huge favorite of mine.
Wow. Okay, Jonathan,
I like the bad guys.
So since we're talking about that's a guilty pleasure, we're talking about guilty pleasures. What are yours? What are the things that you watch on TV that you really wouldn't want people to know? We're just going to broadcast it and tell everybody.
I don't watch much TV. I do streaming stuff, so I'll watch whatever I want to on stream. Recently, I've been watching Love, Death, and Robots. Which is a pretty good series on Netflix. I've been enjoying it.
Love, Death, and Robots.
It's basically a collection of short stories. Each episode's about 10 minutes, and it is completely different from every other episode. And it's
so there's nothing syncs together. It's just
totally different stories.
Totally different stories.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't, but I'm envisioning it kind of like Twilight Zone or one of those.
One of those. Yep. Okay.
More sci-fi, mature content, but it's a good.
Did you watch Cobra Kai? I'm a big Cobra Kai fan.
I tried to watch it.
This is skewed so far off of DeMar Hamlin,
but we're gonna get there. We have our way of getting there. Mark's Stacey Crosby says yay for Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, you just went up about 50% with the women out there.
Women love me. I'm the female in our relationship. Mary hates them. So.
Okay, Cobra Kai. I try that. For those of you that are listening, unless you've been under a rock, but maybe you don't. You know, John, you don't watch a lot of TV.
That's on Netflix, though.
Cobra Kai is on Netflix, and it is kind of the continuation of the Karate Kid. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably very controversial. Karate Kid was okay.
Yeah, I think I never thought I was a big fan. I was not a big fan of Karate Kid. I thought they were whatever.
Yeah, so it was that movie. There was one part of the movie that I like, and that's when he had his leg hurt in the final championship. And other than that, I think I snoozed quite a big part of that as a kid. So Cobra Kai, I tried to get with. You like it, Mark?
I love it.
And there's a lot of people who love it. It's doing extremely well.
It was the number one rated show in the world for a while.
Yeah, no, it's doing extremely well.
Yeah.
Not a fan whatsoever.
Yep.
I tried to watch it. I just couldn't. Have you watched it, Jonathan?
I have seen trailers, and that's it.
You got to watch the whole. It's basically a soap opera, for God's sake.
Okay, so since we're here, my guilty pleasure is, I am a reality show junkie.
Oh,
really?
People probably would never realize.
Do you remember Tool Academy on VH1?
Tool Academy.
Yeah. Okay. I'm into the early reality shows, not so much.
Okay.
Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire?
Yeah.
Joe Millionaire.
So I do. I watch
Rock of Love.
Everything. I watch what is it? The Captain Show. Where they're
Below Deck.
Yeah, Below Deck.
Yeah, I like that one a little bit.
All of the Love and Hip Hop series, the Housewives from every country and every state in the country, Dubai and everywhere else.
They just turn into a big argument. The whole thing.
I know, but it's interesting.
Petty stuff.
But I loved those things. I love. I started with
the Flavor Flav one.
Those are the best. Yeah, Flavor of Love.
Flavor of Love.
I love New York.
I love New York. And then the two brothers. What was the
Real and Chance? I'm telling you, I love.
I used to watch it that time period. I've turned off now.
They're
not as good anymore.
It's entertainment at its purest form. And what I realize is that I'm always complaining about these social media stars that just come.
Yeah, what do they do? Yeah.
But I thought about it. I said, I was a contributor to this because it started with these reality shows. And now reality has gone to social media.
You became a star for being a train wreck, basically.
Speaking of train wrecks, another reality show, Surreal Life. Dennis Rodman.
Oh, that one on VH1 as
well. Yeah.
Was Dr. Drew on that one? Because they had the one where they were going through rehab.
Yeah, they have someone else, but the Surreal Life.
And
so
crazy.
Dennis Rodman, who I had a great, he's always been a little different. And Dwayne Adway, who we're doing the event with, Mark, played Dennis Rodman in his biopic.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he played the starring role. But Dennis Rodman is on that show, and it was absolutely crazy. He has so many emotional issues that are going on. He shared that before one of the championship games, when he was playing with the Pistons, that he found out that one of his teammates had slept with his wife, and then he had to leave and go and play with his
guy.
Teammate. Yeah. So it was crazy. So those, I just think it's, yes, they are train wrecks waiting to happen, but it is entertainment, and it's when I need to just check out, I just turn on reality TV, and it does me for. But I want to go back. This is not reality TV. Now,
7 minutes later,
we're gonna get this train back on track, okay? And I wanted to talk about Damar Hamlin, the safety for the Buffalo Bills, on Monday's game. It was horrific. We were sitting there. I saw the hit. I saw the replay. And
the initial hit, you look like, okay, this is just every play in the NFL, basically.
Nothing crazy about it.
Stood back up, and then boom. Yeah.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in life. And so I'm wondering, as they get this information and they, do all of this tests, if they find out that there were some issues, because the NFL and the NBA have some very thorough testing. I mean, if you're going to be paying these, millions of dollars for athletes, it's like cattle. We want to make sure that they are in prime condition. And so it was just an interesting situation. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. I was watching a series of interviews with his mom, with teammates, and so he's doing, quote unquote, better. He's progressing.
I just saw a thing right before where they released a statement that he's, his lungs are healthy. He seems to have his neurological system is fine. So there's a lot of optimism he'll come out of this. Okay.
Yes. So he's still in ICU.
Yep.
And he's in critical condition. But hopefully, we're hoping that this young man pulls through. It is one of the craziest things I've ever seen I've never seen. This was the freakiest thing ever. And to actually see him code out on the field, and they had to resuscitate him. So initially they were saying it was twice, but it was only one time. The family was making that correction. But there's something that I want to talk about, and it has less to do, our prayers and thoughts. What I thought was cool now his life and his story is being talked about, and the great humanitarian that he is, all of the community service, his foundation that he does for kids. And they were raising money, and they raised, I think it was like over $5 million. Yeah. And when I heard that they raised $5 million,
he has like a toy drive of some sort.
So he makes sure that no kid misses Christmas. But I was thinking, I'm like, this kid came in as a second round pick. I think he was like pick number 17 or something like that. Me being someone who has worked in professional sports, I started thinking like his contract is not that great. So they're going to need some of this $5 million. His health, you got to think his health care and the things that are going on.
Insurance, though. I don't know what the union insurance policy looks like, but I would assume most of it's covered by insurance.
No, so some of that would be, you know, some of these things get kind of tricky if it's a special surgery. Some of those things sometimes aren't covered.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people have been talking about CTE, right? You know, the concussions that athletes have been doing. We've been talking about all of the dangers of football. Everyone becomes a Tuesday morning quarterback and on all of the ails of the league. But the thing that began to deal with me that I started thinking about was his financial health and what would his situation be like. And I was sharing with you guys that he had a 4-year deal that's worth, you know, about $3.5 million. $160,000 that he got in a signing bonus. Football players are not baseball and basketball players. You know, they're not making 20, 30, 40 million, unless you are the upper echelon. Okay. And so I'm thinking like this guy is not making that much money. He's only in the second.
Now, there's probably a lot of people in your audience that would disagree with what a lot of money means.
Well, I mean, and I'm saying this in
relatively speaking,
speaking in terms of his career.
Yep.
But also you got to think that they're bringing billions of dollars in, so he's not making a lot of money in the grand scheme of things.
The players are making a decent amount of money.
They are. Yeah. I mean, but think about who cuts the checks for the players. You know, so there's a lot. Football makes a lot of money, sports in general. But I was thinking about the fact that he makes $160,000 for a signing bonus. Roughly about $800,000. I think the league minimum for the NBA is like $899. I think it's kind of
it looks like he's making close to that.
Yeah. So we're looking at this, and so my thought.
Keep in mind he was a 6th round draft pick. Yeah.
So my thing is this: his money is not guaranteed. See, the NBA has kind of followed suit, but the NFL has always been you get paid to play, and that was because there were so many athletes who get hurt. And are still collecting these big purses, and they are absolutely no value, right? So this kid is now this young man is now in a situation that his money isn't guaranteed. Who knows if he'll ever pick up and play football again? You know, we hope that it would be a great American story to have that happen. But the thing that is concerning is that the NFL, the way their situation works, money is not guaranteed, and he won't really be able to be vested as an employee until he gets.
This is a pretty unique case, though, because the public relations fiasco.
I'm just saying,
be really bad if they go like, "Well, sorry, you're not getting your money."
No, but I think that
is a little bit different than the typical case.
This is a very unique case. Yeah, but it brings to me the conversation that should be had. Is that understanding that football is like sports? It's like gladiators, modern day gladiators. Yep. We understand the issues, but why is more not being done? Understanding those issues, why would you take away safety nets where players get injured and they would not be able to have pensions and those types of things? And so that becomes a concern. If he does not play, he stops getting checks, even on this contract. Yep. So, I look at that, and that became the conversation. I know his health is the primary thing that we want to look at, but I just thought as a lover of sports and looking at sports and understanding the dangers, basketball can be a dangerous sport. You tear your Achilles heel, your life can be over. That was just something that I think that we need to take into consideration. We are a country. I always say I love the fact that that we're doing somewhat better in terms of taking care of our veterans. I think that when people serve our country in whatever capacity, we should take care of them. So it was just my little 2 cents. I was on my little soapbox. I'm getting off now. And I wanted to talk to you guys because this is always interesting to me. And is this just me? But I find interesting how celebrities either make it to the next year or don't make it to the next year. Famous people. It sounds more.
Well, everyone has a shelf life.
Really. But I'm always interested at the names that die the 30th of December, the 31st of December.
Who died this year?
The 1st and the 2nd. Yeah. It's just always interesting to me.
They do that at the Grammys or the Academy Awards as well. who's died in the past year.
Yeah, but even more, not the entire year, but those people who expire before crossing over into the new year.
Okay.
And then the people that get to the new year and run out of gas.
Okay.
Last year it was Betty White and Sidney Poitier. As soon as we came in, those were two great names that we lost. So our thoughts and prayers are with these individuals, because I was looking at this, and our retired Pope Benedict, which have they ever, Mark, you're a good Catholic guy. Yeah. School us. Have they ever had a Pope that retired?
They have, but it's been, I saw it the other day, but it's been a long, long time. I want to say hundreds of years.
Really?
Yeah, is what I want to say.
Wow.
I could be wrong, but I want to say hundreds of years.
But Pope Benedict, Pele. Now, this is what's interesting. Pele died, and he was one of my heroes. I've never been a soccer player, but as a kids, when we would play around with soccer ball, we would run around and be like, "Hey, I'm Pele, Pele."
I mean, Americans even in the 70s knew who Pele was.
Yeah, he was a great hero. Barbara Walters. Every time I say her name, I always think Barbara Wawa. The lady who was on, what's her name? I can't remember her name. She played Rosanna Dana. Do you know who I'm talking about on Saturday Night Live?
Yes, I do. I can't come up with her name. I'll come up with it. It's been 6 centuries since the last Pope resigned, by the way.
6 centuries?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But she always called her Barbara Wawa.
Yeah.
And it was just funny. But Barbara Walters, and Oprah was speaking on her, and she said there would have never been an Oprah Winfrey without a Barbara Walters. And so I just want to take a second just to say, great job, life well lived. She was a cutting edge woman who broke and shattered glasses on every level of the entertainment world, especially as it related to media and news. And so I just was really enamored with her. I've always liked Barbara Walters. She was provocative, asked strong questions, and just kind of paved the way for women out there. So Mark, so you can come in and be the woman in this relationship.
Yeah, there we go. I'm I won't go there. Gilda Radner. That's her name. She was married to Gene Wilder.
Yes.
Both of them hilarious. Hilarious.
Yeah. But she used to always refer. She did a skit. She would call her Barbara Wawa. Yeah. So it's funny. And then Anita Pointer from the Pointer Sisters.
I didn't hear that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the drummer for Earth, Wind, and
I'm
Fire.
a huge Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I know you are, Mark.
Yeah.
That's why I made sure I put Fred White on there. But so
wasn't he one of the he was one of the originators of the band.
One of the originators of the band.
Yeah.
And so that group, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Mark, you would agree with this. They're one of those groups that you can put their music on. It's timeless.
Yeah. And they were in their big prime right when I was in high school, the disco era. Mary loves September. That's like one of her favorites.
Do you remember? Yeah. All right. So we want to continue. The last thing that I wanted to share was, Mark, what's going on? We got Republican caucus down.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I mean, if you're Mike McCarthy, I mean, do you have no shame? Do you have no pride?
Okay, we'll go to 5, to 4, to 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you're so desperate for this title.
So Mark, what do you think it is? Do you think it is power that is driving his desire to do it, or do you think that he just really loves this job?
I think it's power and prestige and its legacy. I was the Speaker of the House. That's what I think.
What do you think, Jonathan? Have you been following this, Jonathan?
Oh yeah. Oh,
so
he's a newsman. He has to follow this.
Six failed attempts at becoming the speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, today,
2 more.
Today they're voting again. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay, it's been beat to death. That's my first thought.
Yeah.
But second, this is kind of everybody saying this is how it's supposed to work. Yeah, kind of.
It doesn't always work that way.
It doesn't always work that way, but yeah, this is
unusual.
This kind of debate and that kind of thing, it's healthy. I'm interested to see how long before Democrats just start voting present. Just because we know hardly anything's going to come out of this House of Representatives. Right. The country's not going to fall into decay if we spend 2 months trying to figure out who's going to be Speaker of the House. How long before Senate Democrats start saying, hey, we want to get stuff through, you need to elect a speaker.
Right.
And so Senate or House Democrats can just start voting present, and then McCarthy becomes speaker, and they can start moving things along.
Right. It's going to be interesting, and I'm always intrigued by these little nuances in our government. But it's interesting because Nancy Pelosi didn't have an easy road to get back to where she had to wheel and deal.
Yep.
And for some reason, the Democrats just kind of seem to fall into rank and file, which I don't always like. So it's going to be interesting. Now, what I did hear, which I'm wondering how this is going to play out, is that there are a number of people that we're never going to vote for him. And they have started to float other names, like maybe Mr. McCarthy, we may need to look at a different direction if people are just that opposed to you and your leadership. So it's going to be interesting to see what plays out. Today's another day, another vote will take place, and we'll see what takes place with all of this madness. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about, and I think that this is interesting. Normally, we take a clean break, but I'm going to make this transition right into what we're going to talk about today. I wanted us to start having conversations, as the show is, Conversations of Race in America. And we often have fun. And I think that this is such a great, it's like a petri dish for great conversations, because we trust one another to be open and vulnerable and share our opinions. And so we want our listeners to follow those sentiments. We give each other pause for cause. We often are very gracious and make sure that we get to a place of understanding. And so my question that I wanted to pose today is, with everything that has taken place, and we were looking, it was funny because I was looking, it was nearly 10 years ago. How long ago has it been President Obama was first elected? At least a decade ago.
Well, it was Trump had 4, Obama had 8.
So 2008.
14 years.
Okay, so 14 years. You know, we would think, okay, finally America is getting past these issues of race. They elected a black president. You know, this is different. We saw now how he was treated as president was sometimes questionable.
Yeah, but every president is treated that way.
Well, I don't think.
Yes.
I don't think. No. I disagree, because I've never heard a president. Well, now things are different. I think with the turning of Obama, things are a little bit different in terms of being on the floor and being called an idiot in your official ranking. We've done better politics than that. Now it's kind of, I think we've degraded.
I don't know. I mean, people used to make fun of George Bush as he was an idiot. We used to make fun of Gerald Ford as a stumbling, bumbling idiot.
But no. This is what I'm saying, Mark. I'm not talking about the media, because the media and pundits and those things, that has always existed. But I'm talking about as they are operating in their official capacities.
I think that we might have moved away from that level of
dignity.
Well, no, I think that we may I think we may have moved into that level of dignity probably in the mid 1900s.
Okay.
And then that's starting
away.
It's starting to wear off.
It's like right now, I mean, honestly, as much as I did not like number 45, and Mark, you didn't, I still think that there has to be a certain level of respect for the office. That has gone out the window.
I ultimately believe if you've got people of different, I mean, ultimately, Democrats, if you're going to accomplish something,
yes,
Democrats and Republicans have to work together. I personally believe
we're beginning to look a lot more like Parliament.
Yeah, and if you're not willing to respectfully have dialogue and seek to understand where the other person's perspective is and try to find a happy medium between the two, you'll never accomplish anything. And that's ultimately where we're at.
Absolutely, and it's a sad thing. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about is that as we got through, I think that President Obama's presidency for many people was aspirational. Did he do everything that I would want to do? No. Would I consider him the most transformative president in the world? No. I'll be very honest. I voted because I wanted to see a black man be president. So it was an aspirational moment for me as a black man. I think for many people in the country, black and whites alike. But it begins to breed the conversation as we look at the events of 2000, 2020, 2021, 22. COVID, George Floyd. Are we ever going to get as a nation to a place that race is no longer so important to us? And as we have these conversations, and the reason I wanted to bring this up because I think America thinks these things, but I want us to take a little time to have a real good conversation on, will America ever experience a post-racial America? We wanted you to stick and stay. Don't go away. We'll be back with more United Shades of Gray.
You're listening to United Shades of Grey on WSGW.
This is Kareem, your host of United Shades of Grey. We're back with more conversation. Today we're having the discussion, will we ever experience the beauty in America of a post-racial America? So, Mark, I'm going to turn to you because, you know, as we have these conversations, John and I have come to understand that Mark lives life. He sees everything with a rosy shade of.
I believe in people, and I believe in people ultimately, and I believe things. Ultimately, I think, so the answer to you, I believe we'll get there. Will it ever be totally without kind of a lens of race? Probably not totally,
right?
Because ultimately race exists and different cultures exist. And so there'll always be some element of that, but I think it'll be far less important as we move into the future. And the way I always look at it, in a certain sense, people may view this as a trivial comparison, but as I've kind of walked into businesses and tried to turn them around, every journey takes time. You don't start at point A and get to point B in a long, hard journey overnight.
Right.
And I look at it as like generational in terms of generations in a certain sense. And that, where we were in the 1950s, where we were in the 1970s, where we were in the 1990s, where we are today, that we've come a certain amount of way in a relatively 50-year period compared to the previous 50 years. Right. And so it's accelerated. And I think that'll continue to happen just like technology accelerates. And so like, if I look at like my kids, race is far less important.
I would agree with that.
And so to me, this is one of these things that it will take generations, but we'll get there.
Mark, this is why I love you. Life looks so great from your perspective.
I wouldn't say great. There's things that are good and there's things that are not so good. But I always take a step back and go like, well, where were we?
Right.
Where are we? And what's the trajectory to where we're going to go? And I think people aren't being objective or honest with themselves if they don't say, like, in 2022, people of color have it a lot better than they had it in 1952.
Right. Okay. So Jonathan, you have, I was really shocked when we in between this short break. Because our opinions were very different than I thought. John, what are your thoughts?
I don't think people want to live in a post-racial America. I think that people have been, I agree with you, Mark, that in comparison to 1952, legally and in the written and structural framework of society, yes, we've made great strides. But I think that, I think we need to define what it means to live in a post-racial America. What's that look like?
Right.
And two, I think that my view of that means race isn't a factor. It's not, it isn't an impediment. It isn't an advantage. It doesn't mean anything. Not that you aren't your race, but that in the structure of the world, it doesn't factor in. And
it's not like if someone's making a decision, there's no discussion of race. Whereas today, there still is.
Yeah.
But at least I'd say, again, 40 years ago, it'd be like, oh, he's black. Forget it. We're not hiring this dude.
I agree. But now I think that it's being clung to as, oh, he's black. We should hire him.
Sure.
I don't agree with that. Come on, stop it.
We've talked about
that discussion does happen. In all fairness.
No. Hold on. We got to qualify that statement.
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the job.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying we got to qualify that statement. Because everyone that is a part of this conversation is not as cued into how America works and the hiring process.
Yeah.
So although I will agree with, there are some things, because it's called equalizing the playing field, right? So I think that happens. But what I want to say is, because this was the same thing with affirmative action. People are like, affirmative action is bad, but middle-class white women were the biggest individuals who received the most out of affirmative action. The conversation you have is absolutely true. I would agree with you, Jonathan, on its premise that there are times when people look at it and say, you know what, there's an African American. However, that individual has to be qualified to do what they're doing.
Certainly.
I just want to make sure we get that caveat in there.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
But it becomes an advantage, and it becomes clung to as, we've got the first African American woman in this position.
Absolutely.
Look at that. And it's
I don't think it's clinging to. I think it's celebrating the fact that we are finally moving forward in some areas.
Even if that person gets it over a more qualified person.
I think you'd like to get to
but that's the thing. I don't think that it's a more qualified person, and I think that every person that has, give me some examples where some people that were less qualified got it because they were Black or Mexican.
I cannot off the top of my head.
That's what I'm saying.
Off the top of
my
head.
I could, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay, but I'll give you a litany of names of individuals who were looked over because they were.
100% agree. I think we're splitting hairs.
No, right. So I think it's like
eventually you'd like to get a spot where it's not even in the discussion.
Yeah, and that's honestly. Now, Mark, go ahead. I want you to finish.
Off of that, I think that
I love that we can have these conversations.
Me too.
Go ahead.
I think that people are not going to give it up,
and I think they will eventually.
What do you mean when you say that?
I think that, to be fair, it is part of a person's identity. A person's race is part of their identity, and as such, they want it to factor in to those decisions. They want you. You're hiring me. You're hiring a white, straight, 24-year-old male. That's who you're hiring when you hire.
They still exist.
Are you sure you're not gender fluid? Yeah.
Stop. No, but I agree with a lot of what you said. Where I would tweak that is, and I'll say this because in some of the notes that I sent to you guys out, I have issues, and this speaks to what you're talking about, Jonathan. I have issues when people say to me, and I'll have conversations, I don't see Black or white. I don't see race.
Yeah, I don't believe that. Yeah, I don't believe that.
I mean, but
that's a lie.
And they may, but to me, it's racially insensitive. I think it prolongs and it continues a situation that is problematic, because as a Black man, and this is where I'm going with what you said, I want you to see me as a Black man. I want you to understand that, because for me, I don't want to be marginalized to where you don't see me. To me, the worst of what has been in America also speaks to the greatest parts of me being a Black man. The perseverance, the overcoming, the hard fighting, the standing, the being able to.
That's not a given.
No, I mean,
because there's a lot of well-to-do.
Well, no, there are, but I want to be seen with the essence of all of that makes. Sure. I love my skin. People ask me all the time, because there's this thing. Are you a Negro? Are you African American? Are you an Afro American? I am a Black man, and that's how I like to be seen. Go ahead.
So you want it to factor into people's judgment about you?
No, I want it to be seen, but I don't want who I am seen as to have a negative or a positive impact. I simply want to understand. There was, we always say that America was a melting pot. And there was another thought process that came probably in the 80s, late 80s, where it was starting to say that America is not a melting pot, but it's more like a tossed salad. I want you to see me as that black olive in your tossed salad. I want you to recognize it, because there's a whole culture, there's a flavor, there's something that I add to this tossed salad, if that makes sense.
I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, but at some point, that's back to a that's a general stereotype.
What do you mean?
You're basically, what I think I heard you say is as a Black man, I have these things that maybe a white man doesn't have.
No. It wasn't that a white man. See, that's where the problem with race comes in. White folks have problem with race. Let me tell you why white people have problems talking about race. Because when we have these conversations, it is often felt that these conversations are against, or they separate us for the better. But it's really, I think, a situation or an opportunity for us, because I think that, Mark, you're one of my. Come on.
I was gonna say is I wasn't. What I was trying to do is restate what I thought I heard you say.
Okay.
About why you want people to understand you're a Black man and what that means.
Yeah. No, not so much me specifically.
Okay.
But what Black people have represented and the benefit and that we've brought to this nation.
Yep.
I think that every individual that has come to this country, Every immigrant that has ever crossed, every person that's come has brought a value with their presence here in this nation. And so I want us to be able to recognize race, and I want us to be able to see the beauty that we bring culturally. You know, we went to Mexico for Christmas, and I was just thinking, like, when I was there, I spoke Spanish because I love Mexican. I took Spanish, a minor in Spanish language and culture, so I speak and write Spanish fluently. But I enjoyed being there because I was able to embrace and to have a respect for the Mexican people, their culture, their food, and everything that they bring. And so when I say that I'm a Black man and I don't want to be just American, I want you to see me. I'm talking about those types of things, Jonathan.
Well, you were talking about appreciating other cultures, and I agree. I think that is one of, if not the thing that makes America so amazing.
That's the great part of it.
But I think that there are people, and these are the people that are clinging to race and clinging to these identities as, no, you can, and
you're always going to have those. Well, I mean, come on, left and right sides of these arguments.
But I think that there are enough people out there that are clinging to that, and no, you can't celebrate my culture because it's my culture. There's
isn't that the whole cultural appropriations?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, come on now. I'm going to tell you, when I saw Bo Derek, it's simple things, and there are things like that.
I don't know why you would get upset about that.
No, I don't.
Whatever.
It's not.
It looks horrible, but if she wants to wear dreadlocks, okay.
I don't get upset about it.
But there are people that do.
There are. Now, I will. What I will have an issue with, and I'm going to read a couple of these comments that we have coming in. The issue that I have as it relates to cultural appropriation, and this is where the issue, and this may be the understanding. It's not that we have an issue with people doing things or borrowing from our culture, but it's when you have a group like New Edition, who was a huge 80s group that is out there singing and doing great and this and that and the other, and then they say, you know what, I bet you if we got a bunch of white kids and we used that same style and we took them, and then New Kids on the Block, is it New Kids on the Block? Yeah, New Kids on the Block, is that who they were?
Was the Bobby Brown the new? Yeah,
he gets so sidetracked so fast. But then they bring out New Kids on the Block. I think is that Donnie Wahlberg and those guys?
There was New Kids on the Block. There was two of them, right?
Yeah. New Kids on the Block
and the other one, whatever. Yeah.
But anyways, they the same manager, and they became the greatest thing that ever happened in the world. It's when we have those Black women have had big ample booties their entire lives. Then we get some lighter skinned individuals that come around and they are. Then it's like you know what I mean? So those are the types of things.
It's back to, like, I think in a certain sense, I don't know, is that really cultural appropriation, or is that?
No, I'm just saying those types of things, you know.
I mean, because ultimately,
how long have Black people had full lips? Our entire existence. Well, except for me, I didn't get hit with the full lip trade. But now we see that it has become, because certain people have liked it. Now we have white women all across America wanting full lips, which I think looks crazy, because I think that your body should match your frame.
Yeah, I would agree.
But it's those types. So cultural appropriation I don't have issues with that. Music, you know, we have, you know, rap has been around forever, but then we get Vanilla Ice, who comes out and says Ice Ice Baby, and suddenly he's a phenomenon. And I did like Ice Ice Baby. I kind of like Vanilla Ice, shameless plug. But
is that, I mean, so what's the issue with that?
So my issue is this, that if a Black man does it, oh, he's talented, it's okay. When a white guy does it, then it's a phenomena. And so when I talk about
does that got to do with racism, or does that got to do
I'm not using the term racism.
Okay.
He asked me about cultural appropriation.
Okay, got it.
And so that was more along that line, and that's where I was coming from. But if we could you're thinking, John, I want you to articulate your thought process, because I think John's like,
we're getting a lot of comments coming in.
No, we are. They're coming in.
This is stirring up a good debate.
Stacy Crosby. Well, let's talk about nepotism, a super qualified person being passed over because of a friend or relative who is not qualified. A lot of companies who are attempting to fill a quota still follow guidelines. If I'm going to give you this job because you are being Black, you are going to be qualified, probably very qualified. If they hire underqualified, it usually is to try and see if it backfires. So that was Stacy. She's made some other comment. You sometimes understand a situation if you haven't walked in that person's race. I don't like to say that, but it's, even though it's true, I hate to say that. The same reason people became upset about having a Black mermaid. You're absolutely.
I can't believe. I'm still like, who cares?
But it happened, you know.
Yeah, but when you deal with how many people live in the United States? How many 100 million people?
300. So
if you're dealing with 300 million people, there's always going to be a fringe.
No, I think that's true.
And they're the ones that get publicity because, hey, it's good news.
Media
copy.
sells. That's what John does.
And they're the reason that we will never see a post-racial America.
Now, John.
No, well, okay. Again, I don't think race will ever disappear. I just think it'll become less and less of a hot button issue, frankly.
You know what? I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah.
Because Mark, I am not as optimistic as you are about things. And as a matter of fact, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of you two, because what I see, one of the questions that I put in your questionnaire was, what would Dr. King think about? We're getting January 16th is coming up.
Yep.
We're commemorating his birthday. It's not his actual birthday, but that's the day we celebrate it. What would Dr. King, how would he view this America that we're now living in? Decades later, how would he view it? And I think that he would be a bit disappointed.
See, I think he would be like, wow, we've come a long way.
Well, I think there's a lot that we have done well.
Yeah.
Okay, we have progressed, but there are a lot of fights that we're still fighting that are the same fights that we were fighting.
That'll never go away. There'll always be a new fight. There'll always be something you could be better.
But I think that we're fighting the same fight. I mean, if you think about it, after this last election, there were probably about 40 different laws that had arose across the country that were really dealing with elections real, voter suppression, all of these crazy things.
Yep.
And so I think that's a large part of what that fight was about. I think that we're having more conversations, and I love these conversations because I think they help us to grow. All right. And we're going to talk about how we can have what we need to be doing to have some more meaningful conversations. But I think that we're having the same conversations that folks were having 50 years ago. And my question is, have we really moved the needle in those areas? Do you guys think we've...
Again, I keep coming back to, like, in a certain sense, how long have people been around? So 50 years in the history of people is nothing.
Okay.
And I go, like, look how far we've come in the period of 50 years relative to the history of mankind.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of like flip the script and I look at it from that perspective. So to expect like titanic changes in 50 years, which is, I don't know how many generations that is, 1, 2, is kind of unrealistic. And so I look at it, it's like technology. Look how far technology has come in the last 50 years.
But technology is different because it doesn't come with emotions, feelings, self-preservation.
It's different in that sense, but it's
that's what drives this whole issue.
Yeah,
of
but
race.
I'm using it as an analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at the history of the world,
right,
and the progress we've made in race relations,
right,
I go like, wow, if you look at it from that perspective, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Now, is it where it needs to be? Hell no, of course not. And do we still have a lot of stuff we need to work on? For sure. But I look at it as like, wow, we've come a long way in a relatively short period of time.
Jonathan, what do you think? Because I think that people don't want it to change.
I agree. I think that people,
who's people? Who are the people that don't want it to change? And,
well,
and what percentage of the population are those people?
But I think that, Mark, what you don't underscore is the fact that division provides a great large portion of our community, or I shouldn't say community, of the world benefit. So media benefits when we have squabbles and we fight.
Well, and talking about looping it back to that cultural appropriation thing, if anybody can celebrate my culture, is it really mine? If it's being celebrated 3 states over, am I unique? People want to be unique. They want to be part of something, but they want to be unique.
I want people to celebrate everything that my culture does.
But they want to. You want them to identify it as your culture.
I want them to identify not as my culture, but as a part of the history that we have. When I think about Cinco de Mayo, I did live broadcasts with Larry Rodarte from Gente. I'm not Hispanic, but I have an appreciation for their culture, and I go and I celebrate their culture the way that they celebrate their culture because I appreciate who they are as a people. And so that is kind of how I see it, and I think it starts with a level of respect that we have to have for one another, and that's one of the things. And so I have a respect for people. I'm telling you, I have a friend. They were African, which is a different culture. They're black. They're a black race, but it's a different culture. They were from Nairobi, and the food and all of it was different.
Yep,
completely different. But I respected that, and so I celebrated it. And that's what I think we have to begin to start.
Well, this is back to my thing of like, we got to get to know it. If you know someone, you realize that they're really good people at heart, I think. And what we're looking for is not very different.
Should I have to know you to respect you, though?
Yeah. And I don't think you should. And that's why I think in a lot of ways, as silly as this may sound, I think people fall into a bucket. Like, I tend to trust people until they prove to me I can't trust them.
You are.
Whereas other people like don't trust them until you prove you. I walk into any relationship with I trust you and respect you until you prove that I shouldn't.
You know what, Mark? I'm going to tell you this. There are so many people that when in Black America, when I talk to them, they love you, Mark. Let me tell you why they love you. Because of this. You have, I think, a very optimistic perception of life and people. And I'll tell you, when we met, what you said is how I was received.
Yeah.
And our conversation was very authentic. I asked you some very hard questions. You weren't rattled by the questions.
No.
What are you here? What do you want to be in our community for? And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
I mean, and you were cool with that. But as John has said, and you said this before, I don't think that people are intrinsically good. And I know that you do. And go ahead, John, you're going to make a point.
Not necessarily on this, but on this topic. I think that people, once we sit down and we talk with someone, we're going to find more that we agree on than we don't. People don't I don't think people walk into most situations thinking, hey, I'm going to make a friend. I'm going to sit down and we're going to agree on something. I think that a lot of people resort to defensiveness, and that's where a lot of this division comes from.
That's where I would just encourage our viewers.
Yes.
Like, assume goodwill. Walk into a conversation and assume this person's not a bad person.
Yes. Mark, you guys are tearing down my list because this is exactly what I was saying. I'm giving you guys a list, and these guys are ahead of the game. No, you guys are, and I say this, and I mean it. I think that you guys are amazing and courageous to be able to sit down and have this conversation. Not that I think that it takes all of that, but I appreciate. There's probably a better way. I appreciate you guys for being willing to have these conversations, because I've tried to have these conversations with so many of the white folks that are in my orbit, and they're like you said, Mark, not a lot of benefit. They stay away from it. But the reality
it's a scary
of it
place to go if you're a white guy.
Absolutely.
Because there's just nothing but downside. Nothing but downside.
I think that there is a greater fear of being called racist.
Yes.
Than really changing the narrative. And so I'd rather say nothing than to have that label on me. And so we want to make sure that we're having these conversations, because if there's ever a hope that we will live in a post-racial America, we've got to have these hard conversations. And I think that we have to be open and honest. So I want to give you guys some things to think about as we continue these tough conversations. Hopefully you'll see those things mimicked here. And you use them, talk about it, have conversations in your own community and with folks who don't look like you or come from where you come from. So one of the things that I want to say, and I said this earlier, it starts with respect. It starts with respect. Let's make sure that we're having respect in our conversations. We don't use words that are offensive or things that we don't, if you don't understand, ask the question and ask what is the most appropriate. People always ask me, and I have no problem with it. How would you like to be referred to? I'm telling you, I'm a black man. That's easy. Secondly, attempt to put aside your preconceptions, Mark. That's what you were talking about. You got to leave some of that stuff, our bags at the door. Number 3, examine your motivation. Are you here to have this conversation? We're talking about affirmative action and the impact. Are you here to prove a point, or are we here to learn how to make systems better?
Yeah, because what I always tell my kids, and we're running out of time, is like, you're not going to change someone's opinion on that.
No, you're not.
What you can try to do is seek to understand where they're at and have them seek to understand where you're at.
We should always first seek to be to understand, and then seek to be understood. Number 4, embrace the discomfort of not knowing. I want to say that and scream it from the rooftop. You are not, you should not feel obligated to know everything about a culture that is not yours. I'm going to tell you, there's so much about the Black culture that I'm learning every day. So understand that you don't have to know everything. Be uncomfortable. Be comfortable with that discomfort, and let's move on. Number 5, accept the realities of America's past. It was what it was. White folks, we don't blame you for every atrocity, but we want you to be partners with us and allies as we make a difference moving forward. I want to thank you guys for this conversation. this year is going to be a great year. Thank you guys for this journey. God bless you all. Grace and peace. Tune in next week for United Shades of Gray.